The way he looked at me. The way he looked at me, not the way someone looks at you when they're trying to impress you, but the way someone looks at you when they're genuinely trying to understand you. And that was what made me unable to pretend anymore. It was a Monday afternoon. I was sitting in the school courtyard with my friends' familiar faces, familiar conversations, familiar laughter that I had long grown used to joining. "Oliver, Jake's having a party tonight, you in?" someone asked. Probably, I answered out of habit. "Bring someone hot," another one teased. I laughed. It was always like this. Always the same jokes. But this time, I didn't feel anything. "I'm busy tonight," I said, surprising even myself. Everyone looked at me. Busy with what? I have something. What could possibly be more important than a party? I hesitated for a second, then said, "I'm meeting Brandon." The atmosphere shifted immediately. Which Brandon? The one the professor always calls out for not doing his homework? That troublemaker? I didn't like the way they talked about him. "Yeah," I said flatly. One of them frowned. "Since when are you close with him?" "None of your business," I said, my voice sharper than usual. Everyone went quiet. I was rarely like that. "I was just asking," they said. I know, I exhaled, but "Don't call him that." "Okay," they raised their hands in surrender. "Chill." I stood up. "Anyway, I'm heading out. Oliver. See you tonight," I said, and walked away. My heart was beating faster than normal. Not because I'd just argued with someone, but because I had chosen. For the first time, I didn't choose what was familiar. I chose Brandon. We met at the basketball court. Like always, Brandon was already there. "You're late," he said, not looking at me. "I turned down a party to come here." "You want me to thank you?" "No," I smiled. "I want you to know." Brandon passed me the ball. "Well, now I know." We started playing. But this time, it was different. It wasn't just a game anymore. It was a way of communicating. Every touch of the ball, every time we moved past each other, something felt more charged, closer. When I tried to get past him, Brandon blocked me, his hand brushing mine. Just for a second, but enough to make everything slow down. We stood closer than necessary. Neither of us said anything, just looked. Then Brandon stepped back. "Focus," he said. "Yeah," I answered, but my mind was no longer on the game. After we finished playing, we sat down like we always did. But the atmosphere was different. Silent but not peaceful. It was tense. "Why didn't you go to the party?" Brandon asked. "I already told you. I want the real reason." I looked at him. "Because I wanted to be here. With me?" "Yeah." Brandon was quiet for a moment. "Do you know what you're doing?" he asked. "Not entirely." "Good," he smiled faintly. "Because if you did, you probably wouldn't be doing it." "Why?" "Because I'm not an easy choice." "I'm not looking for easy," I said. "You're used to easy," Brandon corrected. "Maybe," I admitted. "But I'm tired of it." A pause. "Tired of what?" he asked. "Everything," I said. "Conversations that aren't real. Relationships that aren't deep. People who only like the version of me I perform." Brandon looked at me. "And you think I'm different?" "Yeah." "Are you sure?" "I'm not sure of anything," I said. "But I want to try." Brandon exhaled. "You'll get hurt. I have been before. Not like this." My heart stopped for a moment. "What do you mean?" Brandon didn't answer right away. He just looked down at his hands. Then said, very quietly, "I'm not good at keeping people." That sentence was simple, but heavy. "You don't have to keep me," I said. "Then what?" "I can stay on my own." Brandon smiled, but not happily. "No one just stays on their own forever, Oliver." "I can." "You just think that." I looked at him. "Are you trying to push me away?" "No," Brandon shook his head. "I'm giving you a chance to leave. Before it's too late." "I don't want to leave." "Why?" That question. This time I had an answer. "Because I like you," I said. No roundabout way. No joke. Just the truth. Brandon looked at me. His eyes changed. No longer defensive, but wavering. "You shouldn't," he said. Too late. A long silence. The wind moved across the court, carrying with it the faint chill of evening. Brandon stood up. "I need time," he said. "How long?" I don't know. I'll wait. He looked at me. Don't promise things you're not certain about. I'm certain. Brandon said nothing more. Just turned away. But this time, he didn't leave immediately. He stopped for a moment, didn't look back, but said, "Don't let me be the reason you change." I stood there watching his silhouette, and whispered, almost to myself, "Maybe you already are." After that night, Brandon disappeared. Not completely. He still showed up in class, still walked past me in the hallways, still existed in the same space. But he wouldn't stop. Wouldn't look at me for more than a second. Wouldn't talk. It was like an invisible wall had been built between us. And I hated it. 3 days. I counted. 3 days without talking. 3 days of everything inside me stretched taut, not knowing whether to move forward or back. I was used to things moving quickly, used to the idea that if I wanted someone, I just had to step forward. But Brandon didn't play by those rules. And the worst part was I didn't know what his rules were. On the 4th day, I couldn't take it anymore. After class, just as Brandon was stepping out of the lecture hall, I called, "Brandon." He stopped, just for a second, then turned around. "Yeah." His voice was normal. Too normal, like nothing had happened. "I need to talk to you," I said. "Not a good time." "When is a good time?" "Don't know." I stepped closer. "You're avoiding me." "I'm not." "You're doing exactly that." Brandon exhaled. "Oliver." "No," I cut him off. "Don't say my name like that and then pretend everything is fine." A few people nearby started looking. I didn't care. "I'm not pretending anything," Brandon said, his voice lower. "Then what is this?" I asked. 3 days without talking, without even looking at me. "I told you I needed time." "Time for what?" "To think." "About what?" Brandon went quiet. I stared straight at him. "About me?" 1 beat. 2 beats. "Yeah," he said. My heart beat harder. "Then tell me what you're thinking." "Not everything needs to be said out loud." "This does," I replied. "Because it involves me." Brandon glanced around. "Not here." "Fine," I said. "Let us go somewhere and talk." He hesitated, then nodded. We walked to the back of the dormitory, where there was a small patch of grass that few people passed through. It was late afternoon, the light fading, and the air carried a slight chill. We stood facing each other. Neither of us spoke first. "I'm not good at this kind of thing," Brandon finally said. "Neither am I replied. "But I'm still here." He smiled faintly. "Yeah." A pause. "I've been thinking a lot," Brandon continued, "about what you said. And I don't know whether I should believe it." That answer didn't surprise me. "You don't have to believe it right away," I said. "Just don't let it go." "It's not that simple, Oliver." "Then how hard is it?" Brandon looked down at the ground, then said slowly, "You come from a world where things seem okay. Friends, attention, relationships. I told you." "I know," he cut in. "You don't feel real in that world. But it's still a world you can go back to any time." I was quiet. "And me," Brandon continued, "I don't have that. I don't have a backup. If I step into something and it falls apart, I'm the one who carries the wreckage." I understood. For the first time, I truly understood. "Are you scared?" I asked softly. Brandon didn't answer right away, then nodded. "Yeah." 1 word. "But enough." "I'm scared too," I said. He looked at me. "You?" "Yeah," I smiled slightly. "I'm just better at hiding it." A pause. "You can go back to your old life," Brandon said. "Like nothing ever happened." "I don't want to." "Why?" "I already told you. I want to hear it again." I stepped a little closer. "Because I like you," I said. "Not in a passing way, but the kind where I think about you when you're not there." Brandon didn't step back, but didn't step forward either. Just stood still. "You shouldn't put yourself in that position," he said. "Too late, Oliver." "I'm not perfect," I cut in. "I don't know where this is going. But I know one thing, I don't want to pretend it doesn't exist." The wind moved through, lifting Brandon's hair slightly. He looked at me, longer than any time before. "You make things difficult for me," he said. "I'm sorry." "No," Brandon shook his head. "Don't apologize for being real." A pause. Then he asked, "What if I disappoint you?" "I'll deal with it." "What if I leave?" I'll hurt. And if I never stay? I took a slow breath. Then at least I didn't miss the chance. Brandon closed his eyes for a second, like he was fighting something inside himself. Then opened them. You really are a nuisance, he said, voice low. You've said that. And you're still here. Yeah. A pause. Long tense. Then Brandon stepped forward. Slowly. Very slowly. He stood in front of me close enough that I could feel his breath. Don't expect me to be easy, he said. I don't. Don't expect me to always be here. I don't. And don't expect me not to hurt you. I looked straight into his eyes. But I'm still choosing you. 1 beat. 2 beats. Then Brandon lifted his hand, touched my wrist, very lightly, but enough to make everything inside me tremble. Okay, he said softly, just 1 word. But this time, it didn't sound like the okay before. It sounded like a door being opened. Not completely, but enough for me to step through. After that okay, everything between me and Brandon could never go back to how it was. It wasn't as though we immediately became a couple. No holding hands in public, no photos posted on social media, no clear definition. But there was something clearer than any of those things. We chose to stay. In the days that followed, Brandon no longer avoided me. He still wasn't the kind of person to text every morning or ask what I was up to. But if I reached out, he replied. If I showed up, he didn't turn away. And more than anything, when we were together, he was present. Truly. One evening, we were back at the library. But this time, we weren't sitting across from each other like 2 strangers trying to figure one another out. We sat side by side, close enough that our shoulders brushed lightly whenever one of us shifted. I was reading but couldn't concentrate. I was acutely aware of every small movement Brandon made, the way he turned pages, the way he rested his chin in his hand, the way he sighed softly every now and then. You're not reading, Brandon said, not looking at me. I am reading. No, you're looking at me. How would you know if you're not looking at me? Peripheral vision, he answered evenly. Psychology major? Yeah. I closed my book. Fine. I'm looking at you. Brandon turned. Our eyes met, neither looking away, neither in a rush. Why? He asked. I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe because I like looking at you. A pause. But not an uncomfortable one. It was just full. Brandon held my gaze for a few more seconds, then looked away. You should focus on studying, he said. You're deflecting. I'm not. You are. He exhaled. Oliver. Yeah. Don't make things move too fast. I'm not trying to, but you are. I went quiet, because maybe he was right. I just don't want to pretend nothing is happening, I said. Brandon nodded slightly. Neither do I. A simple answer, but enough to make me feel I wasn't the only one feeling it. About an hour later, the library began to empty. Only a few people scattered around. I stood up and stretched. Want to go? Go where? Brandon asked. Walk around for a bit. He checked his watch, then nodded. Okay. We went outside. The sky was fully dark. The campus was quiet. Only the glow of streetlights and a soft wind. We walked side by side. Not touching, but very close. Do you ever think about the future? I asked. Not much. Why? Because the present is already complicated enough. I laughed softly. Fair. A pause. What about you? Brandon asked. I used to think about it a lot, I said. Like, who I'd become, how I'd live, who I'd love. And now? Now. I'm not so sure anymore. Because of me? I looked at him. Maybe. Brandon didn't respond. Just kept walking. We stopped at a small patch of grass. No one around. Just us. And the night. I sat down. Brandon stood for a moment, then sat beside me. This time the distance between us was closer, shoulder to shoulder, not by accident. But neither of us pulled away. Oliver, Brandon said softly. Yeah. Have you ever regretted starting this? I thought for a moment. No, I said. Have you? A pause. No, he answered. My heart lightened a little. But I'm scared, Brandon added. I know. You shouldn't take that lightly. I don't. Then why are you still here? I turned to look at him. Because you're still here too. A simple answer, but true. Brandon looked at me, his eyes softer, closer. You make everything harder, he said. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. Then what should I do? Brandon didn't answer right away, just looked at me. Then, very slowly he lifted his hand, touched my hand. Not the wrist, but my hand. Fingers touching fingers. Warmth spreading. My heart pounded. Don't run, he said softly. I want tea. Don't promise. I'm not promising, I said. I'm choosing. A pause. Then Brandon squeezed my hand lightly, just a little, but enough to make everything inside me crumble in the most beautiful way. I don't know who leaned in first. Maybe both of us. The space between us disappeared. Our breath mingled together. And then, Brandon stopped. His lips just a few centimeters from mine. I don't want this to be a mistake, he said, voice very low. Neither do I. 1 beat, 2 beats. Then he gently pressed his lips to mine. Not deeply, not urgently. Just a very light kiss. But enough to change everything. Completely. When we pulled apart, neither of us said anything. Just looked at each other. And in that gaze, it was clear. There was no going back. That kiss wasn't like anything I had ever experienced. Not because it was intense, but because it was real. No technique. No trying to impress. No ego getting in between. Just 2 people touching each other very lightly, very slowly, as though both of us were afraid that if we moved even a little faster, everything would break. After we pulled apart, we didn't speak right away. We just sat there, in the darkness of that small patch of grass, hands still touching. I could feel my own heartbeat fast, clear, impossible to hide. And I knew Brandon could feel it too. So, we just did that, I said softly, trying to break the silence. Brandon smiled faintly. Yeah. You okay? A pause. Yeah, he answered. You? I'm more than okay. Brandon turned to look at me. His eyes this time were no longer guarded, no longer full of doubt, just open. I'm not used to this, he said. To what? To letting someone get close. I'm not used to having to be this patient, I laughed. You're doing pretty well. Thanks. Don't get too comfortable, Brandon said. I can still disappoint you. I know. And you're still here. Yeah. A pause. But this time, it wasn't tense. It was warm. In the days that followed, things between us shifted into a new phase. Neither of us had to say it out loud, but we both knew. We were no longer 2 people figuring things out. We were something more than that. Even without a name, Brandon began to open up more. Not a lot, but enough for me to see the pieces he had always kept hidden. One evening, as we sat in my room, door closed, soft amber light, Brandon lay on his back on the bed, eyes fixed on the ceiling. I had someone once, he said. I didn't ask who. I just waited. 2 years ago, Brandon continued. Before I came here. What happened? He was quiet for a moment, then said, I trusted. Just 3 words. But I understood. And he left? I asked softly. No, Brandon shook his head. I was the one who left. I was slightly surprised. Why? Because I thought, if I stayed any longer, I'd lose control, he said. And when I lose control, I ruin everything. I sat down beside him. You don't always have to be in control, I said. It's the only way I know. I'm not him. I know. Then don't treat me like I'm gonna hurt you the same way. Brandon turned his head to look at me. You don't understand, he said. I'm not afraid of you hurting me. Then what are you afraid of? A pause. Then he said very quietly, I'm afraid of myself. That answer left me silent, because I didn't know how to argue against it. I just placed my hand over his. You're not alone, I said. Brandon didn't pull his hand away, but didn't squeeze back either. Just let it rest. As if he was learning how to trust. Things slowly grew familiar. We studied together, ate together, walked together, and sometimes just sat beside each other doing nothing at all. But not everyone was happy about it. One afternoon, as I was in the cafeteria with Brandon, my friend group walked in. I saw them looking at me, looking at Brandon, looking at the way we sat closer than usual. One of them came over. Oliver. Hey. They glanced at Brandon, then back at me. Step outside for a sec? I looked at Brandon. He didn't say anything, just shrugged. Sure, I said, and stood up. We went outside. What are you doing? My friend asked immediately. What do you mean? You and him. Brandon. Whatever. Are you dating him? I was quiet for a second, then said, yeah. They stared at me like I'd said something unbelievable. You serious? Yeah. Do you know what kind of person he is? I know enough. No, you don't. They shook their head. Yes, unstable. That S enough. I cut them off. Oliver. I said that S enough. The air grew tense. You're changing, they said. Yeah. Because of him. I don't see a problem with that. We do. I looked at them. Then that S your problem. A pause. Then they exhaled. You're going to regret this. Maybe, I said. But it's my choice. I turned and walked away, without waiting for a reaction. When I came back, Brandon was still sitting there. But he wasn't looking at me. I heard part of it, he said as I sat down. I figured. A pause. You didn't have to. Brandon started. I know, I cut in. But I wanted to. He looked at me. You don't have to choose me over them. I'm not choosing instead of, I said. I'm choosing you. Brandon went quiet. His expression complicated. Don't do that, he said. Do what? Put me in a position where if things fall apart, you'll lose more than I do. I looked at him. You think I don't know that? Then why are you still? Because I want to, I said. A pause. Long. Then Brandon exhaled. You really don't know how to be afraid, he said. I am afraid, I said. I just don't let it make decisions for me. Brandon looked at me, and this time, he said nothing more, just nodded, very slightly, but enough for me to know we were moving further along, and closer to things that would be harder. Things began to crack in the way I had been warned about, but still wasn't prepared enough to face. Not because Brandon did something wrong right away, but because of who he was. In the days after the conversation at the cafeteria, Brandon grew more distant, not disappearing like before, but the distance was real. He was still with me, but no longer fully present. His eyes would drift somewhere else. Replies came slower. Conversations grew shorter, and I for the first time didn't know what to do. One evening, I found him at the basketball court. Like the very first time. Only this time I didn't stand outside watching. I walked straight in. We need to talk, I said. Brandon didn't stop right away. He threw the ball one more time. And missed. He swore under his breath. Then turned to me. About what? Don't pretend. I'm not pretending. You're avoiding me. I'm not. You're doing exactly that. Brandon exhaled. Oliver. No, I cut him off. Don't say my name like that and then pretend everything is fine. A pause. The wind blew harder than usual. Brandon held the ball, turning it slowly in his hands. I'm feeling out of control, he said. I stepped closer. Because of me? Not only because of you, Brandon answered. But you're a big part of it. My heart tightened. Did I do something wrong? No, he shook his head. That's exactly the problem. I don't understand. Brandon looked at me. His eyes exhausted. You're too good to me, he said. Too patient. Too clear. And that's bad? For me? Maybe. Why? Because I don't know what to do with it, Brandon said. I'm not used to having someone who doesn't he leave. I went quiet. You can leave, he continued. Anytime. And part of me is waiting for that to happen. But I'm not leaving. Not yet. I want tea. Don't say that, Brandon said quickly. Don't promise things you can't control. I'm controlling my own choices, I replied. You can't control the future. I don't need to. A pause. Tense. You're scaring me, Brandon said softly. I don't want that. I know, he said. But I don't know how to not be scared. I stepped even closer. Then don't do it alone. Brandon laughed, but not happily. I always do it alone. You don't have to anymore. You don't understand, he shook his head. If I let you in too deep, I want to know how to find my way out. Why do you need to find a way out? Because everything always ends, Brandon said. And when it ends, I'm the one left standing in the ruins. That hit me. You think I'm going to leave? I think everyone leaves eventually, he answered. I'm not everyone. You're still human, Oliver. I bit my lip. Then what do you want? I asked. Distance. I froze. How much? Don't know. How long? Don't know. You mean, you want me to disappear? No, Brandon said immediately. I don't want you to disappear. Then what? I just need space to breathe. I looked at him, and for the first time, I felt like I wasn't enough. Not because I had done anything wrong, but because I couldn't fix something he had been carrying long before he ever met me. Okay, I said, my voice quieter. Brandon looked up. Really? Yeah, I nodded. If that's what you need. A pause. You're not angry? He asked. I'm sad, I said honestly. But I'm not angry. Why? Because I understand, I answered. Or at least, I'm trying to. Brandon looked at me, his eyes wavering. I don't want to hurt you, he said. You already are. 1 beat. 2 beats. Sorry. I don't need you to apologize, I said. I need you to come back. Not right now. I nodded. Even though inside, I didn't want to accept it. Then, I'll wait, I said. Brandon shook his head. Don't. Too late. Oliver. I'm not saying I'll stand in one place and stop living my life, I said. But I want to close the door. A pause. Then Brandon stepped forward. This time, without touching, just standing very close. I don't deserve you doing this, he said quietly. I don't decide based on whether you deserve it, I replied. I decide based on what I want. Brandon closed his eyes for a second, then opened them. You make everything so much harder, he said. I know. And you keep going anyway. Yeah. A pause. Then Brandon stepped back. Give me time. I nodded. Okay. He turned away. This time, he didn't stop. I stood there, alone in the middle of the court. The wind grew colder. The space felt wider. And for the first time since meeting Brandon, I wasn't sure I could hold on to him. I didn't chase after Brandon this time. Not because I didn't want to, but because I understood. Some distances, if you try to fill them too quickly, only crack open wider. So I did the hardest thing I had ever done in a relationship. I stepped back. The days that followed were slow, very slow. No more evenings at the library together. No more long messages. Just brief nods when we happened to cross paths. Brief glances in class, and an absence more visible than ever. I returned to my old life. Friends, parties, loud conversations, easy laughter, everything the same as before. But I wasn't. I realized it one Saturday night, standing in the middle of a room full of people, music blaring, lights flashing, and I felt nothing. A girl pulled me onto the dance floor. I smiled, by reflex, but in my head, there was Brandon. The way he looked at me, the way he said, give me time. I left the party early. No one tried to stop me. Maybe they thought I was tired, or busy, or didn't care. And for the first time, I didn't try to explain. I walked back to the dormitory. The night was quieter than I remembered. Or maybe I was only now starting to hear the things I had been ignoring. When I passed the basketball court, I stopped. No one there. Just the hoop, the court, and the memory. I stood there for a moment, then turned and walked away. 3 days. For days. 5 days. No messages. No calls. Nothing at all. I started to wonder, was this how things were going to end? No drama. No goodbye. Just silence. On the 6th day, I was sitting in my room, laptop open but not doing anything, when there was a knock at the door. Once. Twice. I stood up. For some reason, my heart started beating faster. I opened the door, and Brandon was standing there. He looked tired, hair messier than usual, his familiar hoodie, his eyes no longer looking away, just very real. Hey, he said. I stood still for a second, then said, hey. A pause. Are you busy? Brandon asked. No. Can I come in? I stepped aside. Yeah. He walked in, glanced around, as if reacquainting himself. I closed the door. Neither of us spoke. I've been thinking, Brandon finally said. Yeah. A lot. I figured. A pause. I tried to go back to how things were before, he continued. Without you. Without all of this. My heart tightened. And? Couldn't he? I looked at him. Couldn't he how? Brandon smiled slightly. Too quiet. A simple answer. But enough. I'm not used to missing you, he said. I said nothing. Just waited. I'm still scared, Brandon continued. Still uncertain. Still think maybe everything will fall apart. Yeah, I said softly. Me too. But he paused for a moment. I don't want to miss out on this. Just because I'm afraid. 1 beat. 2 beats. Neither do I said. Brandon stepped closer. Not in a hurry, but with certainty. I can't promise I'll be perfect, he said. I can't promise I won't hurt you. I don't need you to be perfect. And I don't know where this is going. Neither do I. A pause. Then Brandon said, but I want to try. My heart felt like it stopped for a second. With you. I smiled. Not the usual kind of smile, but lighter. True. Okay, I said. Brandon looked at me. Just okay? I don't want to make it too big. I laughed softly. I'm just here. A pause. Then he stepped closer. This time, he didn't stop. His hand touched my cheek. Lightly. Warm. You're still here, Brandon said softly. Yeah. Even though I made everything difficult. Yeah. Why? I looked straight into his eyes. Because you came back too. 1 beat. 2 beats. Then Brandon kissed me. Not as gently as the first time. But not hurried either. Just certain. Like a quiet declaration. When we pulled apart, I rested my forehead against his. Neither of us said anything. There was no need. Because this time, it wasn't a beginning anymore. It was a choice. 2 people. Staying. Knowing it might not be easy, but choosing anyway. If you ask me whether this story has a happy ending, I'll tell you, it hasn't ended yet. We're still learning.